All right, so uh, this time let's do a deep dive into something really practical.
Yeah.
Prepping for an Amazon business analyst interview, you shared this Richard McMunn video, and he seems like he really knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he's got some great insights.
So you're thinking about going for a business analyst role at Amazon.
It's a great role.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, their interview process is known for being really tough, but it makes sense. They're only looking for the best, people who can not only analyze data, but who also really fit in with their company culture.
Yeah, and that's what I find so interesting about this video. It's not just like, here are the technical skills you need. It really focuses on how important Amazon's leadership principles are to their whole interview process.
Right. So it's not enough to ace those SQL queries. You got to impress them with how you think too.
Exactly.
So what are some of the leadership principles we need to know about?
Well, McMahon talks about a few that are clearly like non-negotiable at Amazon: customer obsession, for example. That's a huge one for them. Putting the customer at the center of every decision.
Right. It's that whole, it's always day one thing.
Exactly.
It's not enough to just do the job. You've got to have that drive.
Yeah, you need to have that entrepreneurial spirit for sure. And that actually connects with another principle. He talks about bias for action. Amazon loves speed. They value people who are comfortable taking risks and making things happen.
Got it. So no hiding behind endless analysis. They want someone who's going to make a difference.
Exactly. And then there's dive deep, which, might seem kind of obvious for a data-driven job, but it's more than just the numbers. It's about really digging deep into why the data looks the way it does, understanding the root causes, finding those hidden patterns.
Okay, so dive deep is their way of saying be insanely curious.
Pretty much. And finally, McMunn talks about insist on the highest standards. This one's all about quality, always getting better. Amazon's always pushing the limits, so you've got to be okay with striving for excellence in every single thing you do.
Makes sense. So we've got customer obsession, ownership bias for action, dive deep, and insist on the highest standards. These principles sound amazing on paper, but how do you actually show them in an interview? How do you make them real?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it does feel kind of like you're trying to grab onto smoke or something, right? How do you actually show those principles during an interview? Make them real. Yeah.
That's where McMunn's advice is so helpful. He loves the STAR method. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, the STAR method, I've heard of it, but yeah, remind me how it goes.
Yeah, so it's situation, task, action, result. It's about telling a structured story that shows off your skills and experience, but it has to be relevant to the question and show how you embody those leadership principles.
So it's not just about listing off everything you've done right. There's a strategy to it?
Exactly. It's not just bragging. You got to
Yeah.
set the scene first, the situation, give
Yeah.
them the context. Then you lay out the task you were specifically working on, followed by the actions you took. And this is key at the end. You hit them with the result. And quantify it if you can.
Right, because Amazon's all about data. So instead of just saying, I improved customer retention, you'd say something like, I implemented a new strategy that increased customer retention by 12%. Hard numbers.
Exactly. And that's how you bring in those leadership principles. While you're going through the STAR method, you're kind of weaving in how your actions really show those Amazon values.
Okay, I get it. But do you have an example? It's still a little fuzzy for me.
Totally. McMunn actually gives a great example for this classic question. Tell me about a time you used data to solve a complex problem. He uses an example from e-commerce. Let's say you're trying to improve customer retention for an online store.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. That's a common problem for those businesses. Tons of data to work with. Where do you even start?
So in this example, the person being interviewed dives into the data and finds out that one product category has way more returns than others. It's a red flag right there. Something's up.
Interesting. So they've found a problem, but now they have to figure out why those products are doing so badly.
Exactly. And this is where those technical skills are important. The example talks about using SQL to dig into customer data. They segment the customers based on their purchase history and then look at key metrics like average order value and customer lifetime value.
Okay, so they're not just saying, I know SQL. They're showing how they use it to find insights.
Right. And it doesn't stop there. They actually use Python to build a predictive model to really understand what makes customers leave. And they find out that personalized recommendations make a big difference.
Oh, that's a great example of an actionable insight. So they have the data, they analyzed it, and now they have a possible solution. Then what?
Then they go to the team and recommend two main changes based on their analysis. One, improve the recommendation engine, make it more personalized. Two, improve the actual products in that category based on the customer feedback. Their argument is that focusing on these things will make customers happier and in the end lead to a higher customer lifetime value.
Smart. So they're not just pointing out the problem, they're offering a solution based on data
Yeah.
and connecting it back to business outcomes.
Exactly. And here's the best part. They don't just say things got better. They use numbers. Let's say these changes they made caused a 15% drop in returns for that product category and a 10% increase in customer lifetime value for that segment.
Wow, those are serious results.
Yeah,
It's one thing to talk about using data, but showing you can get those kind of outcomes is huge.
for sure. And did you notice how that whole example wove in all those leadership principles we discussed? You've got customer obsession front and center, trying to really understand and fix customer problems. Then there's dive deep. They didn't just stop at the surface, they really dug into that data. And you've also got pro-ownership. They didn't just analyze the problem, they came up with a solution and measured its impact.
Right, I see it now. It's like you're telling a story, but using data.
Right.
And what makes it really powerful is showing how it all connects to what matters to Amazon. What other questions did McMunn talk about? I'm kind of getting into this now. Yeah, this is really helpful. It seems like using the STAR method is so important for answering these behavioral questions.
Yeah.
But what about the actual technical stuff? I'm sure Amazon wants to make sure anyone they hire as a business analyst can really handle real-world data.
Oh, absolutely. McMunn doesn't go deep into the technical stuff in the specific video, but he definitely says that you got to show him you're comfortable working with data, manipulating it, analyzing it. He mentions SQL, Excel, even Python as skills you might need for a job like this.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not enough to just know how to write a query or make a chart, right? You have to show them you can use those tools to actually understand what the data means for the business.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine they give you a data set and ask you to analyze it and then present your findings to a bunch of people. They need to know that you can work with that data and then explain what it means in a way that's clear and concise and makes sense for their business.
Right. So it wouldn't hurt to brush up on those data visualization skills too, huh?
Totally. Anyway, back to those behavioral questions. McMunn actually talks about another tough one. Describe a time when you had to make a hard decision where you had to give up something good in the short term for a bigger goal in the long term.
Ooh, that's a tricky one. It's so easy to say, oh yeah, I'm a strategic thinker. But this question really makes you prove it. What kind of example did he give?
So he talks about this situation where the person being interviewed was working on launching a new product, right? Big moneymaker, lots of pressure to get it out there, ASAP. But then while they're testing everything, their data analysis shows a huge problem. The supply chain, it wasn't ready to handle all the orders they were expecting.
Oh wow, classic case of short-term excitement versus long-term thinking. What did they do?
They did exactly what Amazon loves. They made the tough call. They explained to everyone that launching too early with a supply chain that wasn't ready would be a disaster. Delays angry customers, maybe even hurt the brand.
Yeah, you got to think long-term. It's hard when everyone's excited about a big launch,
Right.
but the customer experience is what really matters in the end.
Did it work? Did people listen?
Yeah, they did. At first, people pushed back, of course, but the interviewee showed them the data, and they came around. They realized it was better to launch right than launch fast. And in the end, they avoided a total mess and made even more money than they thought they would.
That's amazing. Sometimes slowing down to make sure everything's perfect is actually the best way to succeed.
Totally. And you can see those leadership principles again, right? Insisting on the highest standards even when it's tough, thinking long-term even when everyone's freaking out, and putting the customer first, making sure their experience is good from the very beginning. This whole deep dive has been so helpful. So it seems like to ace the Amazon Business Analyst interview, you shouldn't just try to fit in. You need to really understand their values and show how your experiences prove you live by those values too.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about showing off your analytical chops. Yeah, but also your judgment, how you think, how you can connect all those data points to smart decisions. It's about being a problem solver, someone who loves to dig deep, think big, and always put the customer first.
And don't forget the STAR method. It's like a cheat code for answering those behavioral questions in a way that really makes an impact.
For sure. Get ready for the technical stuff, obviously, but those behavioral questions are just as important.
Absolutely. So to wrap things up, for anyone out there getting ready for an Amazon Business Analyst interview, it's not just about what you know. It's about how you connect your skills and experience to what Amazon cares about most.
Well said. I think we've given everyone a lot to think about and some good tips to practice. Thanks for listening, everyone. Good luck with your interviews.
Yeah, good luck.